Hello. Hey everybody, welcome. It's Austin JS, and it's August, and it's hot, but we're really thankful you guys came. It's going to be a really fun night. We have 3 lightning talks and 1 awesome main talk, and we have a little bit of everything tonight. So get ready to learn and nerd it up a bit. So just a reminder, 2 sponsors here that are helping out, Cloudflare and Block. And after the event, we're going to go down to Zilker Brewery. It's about 3-4 minute walk away. And yeah, sign up for our newsletter if you'd like. And yeah, let's get the show on the road. So our first speaker, who is a returning champion, and a lot of people know him, and he's always entertaining, is David Bowman. So take it away.
Hello everyone, my name's David Bowman. It's really nice to meet all y'all. Today we're going to talk about event-driven architecture. So this is Austin JS, and a lot of people here do front-end development, which is one side of JS. But there's this whole magical side called back-end development as well, which is the only thing that I secretly know how to do. I use this, whatever, event every month to write front-end code. It looks a lot like AI wrote it. So today we're going to talk about event-driven architecture. What's an event? So a lot of people, it's the opposite of that. You have to scroll the other way. Okay. So a lot of people's foray into back-end development looks like this. They have to have some type of data, they write a database, they learn an ORM, eventually they learn Postgres solves all their problems. And then they have to sit there and write APIs. There's a bunch of APIs, you have to create a server, and then you have to sit there and create a way to handle, all the API requests. You learn to rename things from parameters to things like payload, and then you get responses instead of whatever results or renders or whatever it is in the front end. That's what most people do. They write APIs, and it makes sense. You have some API, there's data somewhere over there, there's a server in another place, your front end exists in the CDN around the world when you use Cloudflare. But when you use Cloudflare, it has to ping your server, which could be anywhere in the world. It has to ping your database, which is probably in only one place if you're poor. And it could take a long time. It could take a round trip. But there's other different ways of reaching your data. It doesn't just need to be, where's my database? Where's my server? We have different types of data structures, one of which is an event. An event is an object. It's an object that's the kind of type. Like, for example, it's an immutable value signaling a current as a message, as a user, as a text. There's also secretly a timestamp I should put, but the row is only so long. There's an event bus. It just holds events. It communicates. Some people would call it streaming, I guess. And then we have a channel, subscription, stream, whatever. It's just a type. The point being is that there's many ways to communicate with our data. You might be familiar with webhooks. There's a server somewhere, it sends you a webhook, it talks to you, and then you ping your own server and you say, hey, someone talked to us, we have to do something else. That's kind of like, you have to originally hear the information from an original source. Pub, sub, and events allow you to have a many-to-many connection. Like, for example, a chat room. You can have many people in a chat room messaging all willy-nilly to one another, but I can't go and store everything in my database. I need to store this within memory or cache or within a stream somewhere that everyone gets access instantaneously. It exists with my server. I don't have time to put it in the database. I don't have time to cache it. PubSub is an event structure that works somewhat like this. I'm a little tired, so that was confusing. Let's start over. PubSub, publish, subscribe. You have some type of data channel where people can subscribe to it that says, hey, let me know when this is updated. And then you have some people who can publish to it that says, hey, here's the update. Everyone who subscribes should hear from it. This is particularly interesting, particularly with AI right now. You have a lot of chatbots, and you have Vercel, SDK, AI, and you have all this other nonsense that comes with a bunch of opinions. But what happens if you need to write something cool? Like, I do a lot in healthcare. I had to write an application a month and a half ago where doctors want to talk to patients in languages they don't speak. So we need to be able to actively translate what people are saying in chat. The Vercel SDK can't do that in AI, whatever other tools don't. You need to create your own PubSub. You need to create handlers that can sit there and handle the translation in between without going through all the opinionated nonsense of other stuff. In the world of AI, where we have this type of synchronicity between LLMs and people, We have more event-driven infrastructure that's going to start hitting our way. Publish and subscribe is one of these examples. Let's show you a little example. I have a little chat. I didn't give you the URL or whatever, but on my little website, you can actually sit here. Let's see, how do you click? Oh, it's the opposite.
Do you want me to chat with you?
Oh yeah, you can chat with me. I'll be like, hi, Sal. I can't remember. Hi, other person. Well, you can do this. Now this, it's kind of interesting. From a JavaScript perspective, a lot of people think that this exists in a database. Hopefully it works that way. We don't get a chat back, it'd be a little sad. But it doesn't. It exists in some cache up where in space, inside of a stream. These streams can be bounded. They can hold X number of messages to infinite, so you actually can't sit there and destroy my thing. It only holds 100 messages and deletes it. But it allows us to create a little instance in our server for a very particular service, which is PubSub. I'm guessing it doesn't work.
It says I'm offline.
Refresh the page. I built this in like 3 hours, so it might not always work. No, it's broken. Whatever.
It did work earlier.
It did work earlier. We tested it. But let's talk about uses for these type of event-driven architecture. With LLMs, with new AI tools, the data moves pretty quick. We don't have time to store it in DBs. Oh, there it is. We don't have time to cache it. We need to manipulate it immediately. If we sit there and we take the data, we put it into our database, and we move it to a handler, we handle it, we toss it back in our database, then we send it to you. Many milliseconds could have occurred before this happened. Now imagine this is happening between 15 different agents. You could sit there and be adding full seconds latency to your function. Now comes in PubSub. We create an event-driven architecture that exists within our server where we can handle things all in one place without it ever touching the database. It's one of those data structures that no one uses, most people. But very valuable, I think, to learn in wherever year we are, 2025. Other people are here too. There's no censorship, so there's also no saving of anything. What's the point? No, I'm just kind of yapping. But here's something that I always come here to JavaScript land or wherever it is that we do here, and I want to talk about backend code. Backend code, I think, in 2025 is becoming more valuable. Understanding that there's applications outside of APIs, that you have event-driven applications that you can store data with in cache, manipulate in real time across multiple agents and send to people. It's easier than you would think. I wrote this in like 3 hours trying to work. If I spent 5 hours on it, it would certainly work. And you can scale it. I can sit there and take this PubSub service and scale it to 10,000 different, Docker containers in probably, an hour if I knew how to do it. And I don't know. I think it's worth thinking about. I think as you move through the AI world, it's worth looking at new data structures because it's what AI is using, and there's value in it in modern applications. If you don't know it exists, you don't know what type of ammunition you really kind of bring to the firefight, which is SaaS in 2025. I don't know. I'd recommend checking it out. There's a link or something I'll share with you later. You can chat with each other if you're nice. Awesome.
Thank you, David. Yes, PubSub is a secret that everyone should know about more. And our next lightning talk speaker, whoever that person wants to be, come on up. Rock, paper, scissors? No, I'm just kidding.
Fight to the death.
Yeah, sure. Do it. Want a mic? I do want a mic. Oh, whoa, fancy. Feel like I'm giving a TED talk. Great. All right, can everyone hear me? Yep. Hey everyone, my name is Akeem McLennan, software engineer, PM sometimes. And I'm less giving a talk, but just wanted to talk about something that I find really cool and like using. And they're called dev containers. They're faster, consistent, and more secure. So before I talk about dev containers, what are containers? And containers basically provide a isolated and reproducible way to package your code. And so you don't have a situation where something just works on my machine. Theoretically, the same code would work exactly the same on your laptop, in production when you put it on Kubernetes or whatever cluster you have. And you don't even have to worry about how to install dependencies and all of that. It's very reproducible. And so when you combine the power of containers and put them with dev containers, this is a feature that's originated in VS Code, but it's in a couple of other IDEs, but it essentially allows you to just use your IDE with the full UI, all the extensions, all the features, but you get the benefits of using a container. And so you have all the isolation, you have everything working as you need, and it's overall a better experience. So, why have I started using them more? So they're a very familiar ecosystem to me. I already use Docker containers a lot whenever I'm deploying something, either my laptop or on my server. And I don't want to have to worry about dependencies moving computer to computer. But one of the advantages of having everything neatly packaged, I can run things with higher confidence and test fidelity. For example, I have one app that uses PostGIS, and so it uses a lot of esoteric C libraries to make calculations and stuff like that. And it's kind of tricky on my Mac versus on my actual Linux server, and I want to make sure that they run consistently. Similarly, I want my tests to be realistic so I can determine anything that's broken locally will represent what I would see in production. But now that I've been using AI coding tools and vibe coding, I want to YOLO more. And so I want my AI tools to run all these tests realistically, but not screw up my computer. So how do I do that? A little bit more of the why, expand on that a little bit more. So I don't know if any of you have used Claude Code, but they basically work by going through a loop where they will take a prompt. They have a tool available to them, so really they can run any arbitrary bash command, which means that they can literally run anything on your computer. So theoretically with this one, it's just creating a new app, but it could hallucinate something that says, remove my file system. And so to mitigate that, it performs a check whenever it is performing like an arbitrary command. And you can filter by command, but Claude seems to have a mysterious talent for creating new commands that does the same exact thing. So this is a recurrent cycle. It's necessary, but it can kind of slow you down if you want to really have the ability to multitask. You want to like give it an assignment, check back later, but it isn't as effective if you check back 2 seconds later and it has another prompt. But we can actually do the security model a little bit differently. If you can take it to a higher layer where the agent is unable to do really anything outside of your computer or outside of this container, because in its world, all it can access is whatever you give to it. And so some AI tools claim that you can just tell it, hey, don't run anything in production or something like that. But recently there's been an example where like if it has access to it, even if it pinky swears not to do anything, it can, I don't know, it can panic and it can wreak havoc. But you can do it differently. I added videos, but maybe I can give access. But anyway, so it's pretty easy to install because VS Code just allows you to, I'll give the thing. VS Code allows you to easily, let's see if it works. Well, I'll give permission. Yeah, I'll confirm. Maybe this will work this time. Well, let me give permission to the Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. I can show you afterwards. But ultimately, they're just Docker and Docker files. So part of the process of creating it, it just creates a JSON file. And it says, okay, how do I want to be consistent about this? So I use something slightly more esoteric. In one of my front-end apps, I'm actually using Bun. And so I have this Docker file that essentially installs Bun, does some stuff to install my private packages, and run a bunch of other scripts. And so whenever I set up this environment, wherever I go, it knows to just load this Docker file and build this isolated environment that doesn't have access to the whole system. And so, going next slide, what this enables me to do is to live life dangerously. And so one thing that I wouldn't dare do on my normal computer, but I do all the time now, is I run it in dangerously skip permissions mode. And it gives this very scary message that says, hey, you should not run this outside of a sandbox container. Lucky for us, we are running it inside of a sandbox container. And so you now see that my path is workspaces, to-do container. And this is something that illustrates like it's a completely different file system. The container doesn't know anything more than it has access to, and it only can read within my, my code folder. So let me try this video. And it could just die again, but okay. So yeah. So in my previous video, I was stopped every few seconds because it needed to do something new. But I asked it to do a to-do app, and so it analyzes the code. It's like, okay, let me do this. And so it will just go ahead and run that npm command arbitrarily and do whatever else it needs to do. And at the end, I'll have a fully working to-do app. And so for this, we've already spent a lot of time, so you get the idea. But what this really allows me to do is have multiple things going at the same time, have them completely isolated from each other, and not be concerned about whether my system is going to be completely destroyed by, I don't know, Claude hallucinating that I am setting off nuclear war. So yeah, you get rid of the constant nagging. If anything does break, the Docker containers are designed to be ephemeral, and so you can easily just get back to where you started because they get destroyed and recreated all the time. That's how they work. So they can be moved to other systems, or you have a nice, easy checkpoint on how to get things going. And so some of the videos kind of work, but one more. Why not just use regular containers? So I actually had a workflow when developing locally. I would run just a normal Docker container. But what I really like is that because I started using like Cursor, which is a fork of VS Code, but it has its own AI tools, I was worried that it would do something that I didn't want it to do. And so this gives you the full UI of whatever editor you like using, but it also gives you the guarantees that having like the container isolation gives you. And so ultimately, I like being able to live dangerously, but I like having my tools readily available. And so some of the extensions will also, despite being in this isolated environment, it essentially creates like a communication syncing protocol. So it can talk to the host machine and say, okay, like what are his settings for root code or even prettier or something like that, and make sure that everything works exactly how I want it, even though I keep it isolated. So it just gets like a little peek of things inside of my host system without having the full access. And that should be it. Any questions?
Actually, just one.
Yeah, sure.
So one of your slides says secure. Sorry. So when you say secure, you mean like whatever is inside the Docker like or container can access outside and like so you're safe, like the host machine is safe, or against the outside attacks or whatever site.
So if you do give the container internet access, it can access the internet. So for me personally, I try to keep my MCPs limited to just like public stuff so it doesn't access the internet and destroy something.
So
but-
host secure.
Yeah, so the host is secure. Especially within Mac, the Docker is in a entirely different VM, so it can't really escape that VM. On Linux containers, there is a way if you have roots to escape it, and a lot of public systems essentially have like a SYN VM layer on top of the container to make it completely isolated. But for your local machine, for all intents and purposes, it can't escape. And yeah, I can go more in depth on that, but
Thank you.
any other questions? All right, well, thanks everybody.
That was awesome. I have not yet messed around with dev containers, but I'm sure I would break less stuff if I did already start using that. So we have one more lightning talk, and it's Sal.
Yeah, do that. Fancy microphone. Hello. Yes. Nice. That one? How's that? All right. Let's see here. So I'm going to do a quick talk on a little bit of the history of kind of our interactions with AI coding tools and kind of where the current landscape is at the moment. So we're going to start off with a few questions. Has anybody used any of the terminal-based coding AI tools? Raise your hands. Good, good. Nice, nice. And then are you guys like integrating like MCP servers and things like that? Just raise your hand again if it's the first one. Okay. And then has anyone heard of the sub-agents or the custom agents feature in Claude Code, and have they used it?
Being heard but not used.
Yeah. So, move on here. So, kind of we're going to start off here with prompt engineering out in 2022, right? Back in the dark ages when ChatGPT first came out, we just had a little chat interface. Everyone was trying to optimize to get like the best prompt possible, and that usually involves spending like a lot of time and tokens going back and forth with chatbot, trying to like kind of like finagle like coax this answer out of it, which is not really like a deterministic way of getting a result, right? So people were like making like these super complex prompts and then trying to like generalize them across different models that didn't really work that well, unfortunately. So then we also had to deal with kind of the lack of memory in between like chats. It was kind of reset, or I think ChatGPT at some point had like a limit, which I assume is when it ran out of context, and then it just made you do chat. So the newer models kind of had ways to address this, but none of them were really particularly great. So kind of to address this prompt engineering, some of the limitations we've run across, we've kind of moved along to the next part, which is another big buzzword here, context engineering, right? And that involves a couple different techniques, but a lot of times it's having like persistent like systems files, kind of like a Claude NV, or like the instructions that you use for Copilot. Persisting some state from chat to chat, from request to request, using these just like markdown files, basically. And then you can also kind of enhance your context by integrating like MCP servers, and then having like better tools that access the code
code kind of like just in time when you need it. Also, say like the context set an MCP server, just requesting documentation and kind of parsing that right when you need it for that particular request, rather than loading it all into context and then trying to parse all of this stuff. But unfortunately, as we have more and more access to MCP servers, they can kind of pollute the context and almost like poison it and corrupt it. Because if you have access to all of these different tools, the LLM eventually is going to hallucinate some things and maybe end up deleting your file system because you ran in that skip dangerously permission mode. I've never done that on my personal machine before. I don't know about you guys. But so now to kind of address some of these like context restriction issues that we're coming up with, Claude Code has introduced a pretty interesting new feature. It's really a couple different features. The first one being just like sub-agents. You can craft a prompt that says, I need to address, say, like this build issue error that I'm getting when I'm trying to deploy like to a specific environment, something along those lines. And then you can ask it to use role-based sub-agents to analyze this issue from a couple different perspectives, and then it's able to kind of synthesize all the information from these sub-agents that kind of have their own roles, so they have like their own unique ways of looking at the issue, and then it kind of returns summaries of all of these tasks that the sub-agents have gone and done to the main like orchestrating agent, which is kind of the one that you chat back and forth with in Claude Code, and then it's able to like make a recommendation based on kind of all of these guys here. But the more interesting and relatively newer feature is the custom agents, where you can actually create your own. You use the /agents command in Claude Code, and it kind of like walks you through like a step-by-step sort of thing where you give it a name, like a pretty descriptive one, so you know like which one is calling, which one the orchestrating agent is calling. And you can give it a custom prompt that is not shared, and it doesn't share the Claude ND either. So these agents have a very narrow focus, and they have their own completely isolated context. So they can use a bunch of different tools, say like the Playwright MCP server to load up a website, and either take like real screenshots or just kind of like that markdown accessibility tree that it gets access to. And it just allows more customization. Also, you can choose the model. Now, this being a Claude product, you only really have Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus, but you can choose different models for different applications. Maybe Haiku for like really small level stuff, and then Opus for like big brain, thinking big thoughts, like a philosopher or something like that. And then they're all reusable, because they're really just, I'll show you the next slide, they're just markdown files, basically. And you just provide that Claude Code and it makes these agents. And kind of the killer feature, besides the context isolation, is that they can be automatically invoked by the orchestrating agent. Previously, when I was talking about the sub-agents, you have to like craft a prompt specifically to use them. Here, you can just have any prompt, and then if you have a descriptive enough like description, Claude Code will just invoke these agents and then use them. So kind of moving on to the next slide here, it shows you, this is just off of Anthropic's website for documentation on sub-agents, custom agents. This is an example of the code reviewer custom agent. And you can see like a couple different parts there. The name, the description, that's got to be pretty clear. You can even like include some examples there, because that's what Claude Code will use to invoke the custom agent. So if you put like a couple examples, it kind of has more to go off of. And then you can choose your model. And also, you can choose the tools that it has access to, including MCP servers. So if you have like some really heavy MCP servers that kind of loot up all your context, you can try to create an agent that specifically does that task that the MCP server is kind of related to, and then just have the custom agent use that, keeping the context kind of nice and clean and segregated, and then it can just return a summary of its findings back to the orchestrating agent, which I think is a pretty cool feature, especially with a lot of the Anthropic models that really don't have the biggest context window. You find yourself either clearing or compacting pretty often, and you really don't want to compact. The more you compact it, the more kind of like junk data you get, like artifacts from previous conversations into your context, and then you're really just not gonna have a good time and get the results that you want. Yeah, so make sure that all of these agents have like one specific job too, so they're not like interacting. But yeah, so we've got a couple use cases here: code review, QA, debugging, that kind of stuff. And this is just kind of an example of some of the output that code review agent puts out. But just gonna go here. This is just kind of a recap of what I got over, but that's pretty much it. Got some great resources up there. I can go into more depth on this if you guys want to chat afterwards, but if anyone's got any questions, feel free.
Usually, like, coding, like, I have too large of, my quantity is too large. Like, I've said that's not following my patterns that I carefully defined over a long period of time. Is there a way to kind of cascade these agents so that they always run the same order, like, my get it working agent, then my refactors, my actual patterns agent, and then my, check if the code sucks agent?
Yeah, if you can define in the description when you write the agent to run, like that code review agent there, in kind of improper examples, they said run it after you, put new code in the database, basically. So I'm not gonna say like 100% it will always follow that, because there is like a certain lack of determinability in, AI in general. But I think you can like kind of tune it towards something like that. Yeah.
If I can just add to that real quick bit, also you might look into the Claude Code like hooks stuff, because like I think you can like invoke things like you can tell it to talk to this talk to the code review agent, whatever. You can like inject that into the prompt or whatever, like so as a hook.
Yeah, the hooks are very interesting. You can have it like when it prompts for like user input or something like that. There's a lot of hooks that you can look into. Any other questions?
There's another project, Claude Flow. It's an open source project. It's called Swarming. It's based on Swarming. I like it.
Got a question?
Yeah, so two questions actually. First one is, are the data sets used by agents are also different, or are they using the, just like, is it basically, hey, you're gonna do this and you're gonna do this, and they use all the same data sets, or this agent's data set is only coding and this one's like database, this one's front end?
What do you mean by data set?
So like if you go to most LLM tools, UIs, so you can pick specialized data sets. So like something just literature, or this one is just for coding. Well, they're more general right now, like coding science maybe. But instead of that, I'm saying this one is just this data sets, everything related to user UI. And this one is everything related to databases.
You're talking about like embeddings?
Well, yeah, I mean, so basically trained data sets, but they're using different one instead of, so because in the end, basically you're saying you're using same data set, but just do this.
Yeah. Well, this is an Anthropic product, so I'm not sure if they're really going to
Okay.
allow. Yeah, I suppose others
So,
use different models.
second-
I can't really speak to that, unfortunately.
Gotcha. So second question is there a like a central agent, like basically says, hey, I have 5 agents and this task for that one. So it's like delegating agent basically.
You probably make one like that. I'm
So-
not really sure how well it would work though. You're kind of relying on
Yeah, I
all
mean,
that
so
work.
basically you're giving the prompts to one agent and says that delegates to task, and this one gonna do this. So they just like maybe work simultaneously.
It sounds like a good experiment to try. I don't have any personal experience with it, but it seems interesting.
The main agent.
Yeah, but you're the one giving jobs to agents separately.
Right now, I'm trying to parse a lot of like images of mobile to Glasgow and try to see if we can react in a batch, like in a bunch of screens. And my question to you, you mentioned the architect doesn't have that much memory. So would you create some
try to keep it like as common as possible.
So you said that for ordering like these multi-agent things, that it wasn't necessarily deterministic, or?
That's just my speculation. I haven't really had a huge experience.
I was wondering how that
on
would
it.
work, because like, well, they finish their responses, I'm wondering, should we just wait for that? Like, I don't.
Yeah, I think that's a good topic to explore in the future, but yeah, I haven't really done much with it, unfortunately. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Yeah, this is the future of cloud code and sub-agents, or just sub-agents in general, is a super powerful paradigm for everything. So we have the main talk, and we have Kushal, and I hope everyone's excited for this talk because this is a subject that personally I don't know anything about, so I really thank you for stepping up and delivering on this. We'll plug you in.
Okay, it's fine.
There should be a second one.
Backups. Now the backup's dead. I just choose that anyway. Backup. It's green. Oh, it's already. Where's that? Cool. Yeah, this one, this one. Yeah, this is a bad. Good practice. Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
The black one. Different code is that. Let me just switch it up. Yeah, right. Right around.
Okay.
Let me see. Okay. You can see my notes, so I'm just going to cancel this out. I'm just going to because I think this is better. Anyway, cool. Hello everyone. I am Kushal, and I will be talking about building for everyone. And while building for everyone as a front-end developer is a very important thing. Can I get a show of hands of how many people here are front-end developers? Cool, a lot. How many of you have worked in accessibility? Cool, that's a good number. Next, is there anyone with accessible needs in this space? Someone who's using assistive technologies, or someone who often relies on accessibility? No. Cool. Next. Okay. Before I go into the talk, I just want to talk a little bit about myself. I'm Kushal. I was born in India. I did my undergrad in computer science. Post that, I worked for a shitty company called TCS. And that's when I realized I wanted to really go deep into working in design. So I did my master's from Purdue in user experience design. Post that, I worked for Department of Education. That's when I did my first course in accessibility, for full stack, front end, you name it. And then now I work for Amazon's homepage team, where I tackle a bunch of accessibility problems, super niche. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about my experience working there and some of the cases that I've had to deal with. And feel free to raise your hand, ask me any questions at any point. Cool. How did I get into accessibility? Like I just said, I was very curious. I did not want to do computer science again because the first time I did, I had to basically learn all of it by myself, right? And I was like, let me try design. It sounded pretty interesting. I could make a lot easier and cooler friends. But accessibility does sit at the intersection of design and development. So you need to kind of understand as a user how to access with an interface using the tool that you have. You need to think about the design side of it. How do you make it easier for the user to access it? And as a developer, how to get it to life. I did not do a lot of certifications. I did the most basic EDX certification, just dip my toes, and went case by case basis. The third reason is personal to me. I definitely like the social impact side of it. Building for people who are often not built for or often treated as edge case is something that I do not like. And there's definitely a good social side to it, which definitely inspires me. Cool. Let me start. I'm gonna go a little bit into the basics. I'm not gonna spend too much time, but I'm just gonna talk through some of the things just so we can set up the stage so I can get into the cases, right? So what is accessibility, right? Accessibility means designing and developing technology for everyone, and then for people with disabilities. So I need to build first for people who don't have this as well as people with this, right? But the important thing here is when you build for people with disabilities, you often end up making it better for everyone. So it works both ways. I really want to drive that point. So why does it matter? So there's about 50 people in this room, maybe 60. Let's say 50, right? There's about 7.5 people who have, in an old room, there's a very young room, who already have some sort of disability. So if you don't have it, your grandma might have it, your parents might have it. I'm not trying to scare you. If we don't build experiences for, those kinds of people, or even us, right? We might be getting old, we might be, needing to use those things at some point. It's definitely a thing you all have to deal with. So, the edge case to the base case, right? So, say you're building a business, right? Your service is providing a ticket booking service, a bus booking service, reservation service. Think about it, you can build all these AI features on top. You can build a bunch of all these other features on top, but your main use case, your main MVP is not being able to, be utilized by a bunch of these people, 15%, and if they understand your brand, and if they, rep with you and they understand that you care for them, they're going to be there for you forever. So you are missing the base case, your whole MVP itself. So and like I said, 15% of the world deals with this, and as we get older, our odds definitely do increase. So let's talk a little bit about the legal and the product lens. So European Accessibility Act is what got me into Amazon, right? So Amazon had 25 tickets that they needed to comply with European Accessibility Act, and if they did not comply, each ticket would cost them $1 million a day. I'm not kidding. This is truth, okay? $1 million a day. So America also has a standard. Obviously, they don't enforce it as much, but there's still a standard, okay? It's called Americans with Disabilities Act. It's also enforced. So there's a legal compliance to it, which every business that is public facing and customer facing needs to take it very seriously. And the impact, right? Already this year we have filed 2,000 cases more than what we have filed last year. And that number is only going to increase. I think last year it was around 6,000. But yeah, we're already at 8K right now, and it's only going to increase. And we do know Americans like this, so yeah. Anyway, so I'm gonna go into a little bit into the categories. I have some fun examples, but yeah, really gonna run through it. So the visual side, right? People with partial blindness, low blindness, people who can't see all the colors. Those are the people, like our Matt Murdock here. These are also people who are super cool, okay? They can definitely, they have a lot of other skills and they engage with the world in a bunch of different ways. So, but these people generally rely on voice-assisted technologies, screen readers, and they use these switches so that they can hear, okay? And trust me, there's a bunch of research on how people with diabetes, it's not a fun fact, but like people with diabetes get glaucoma a lot more, and this like 30% of America is diabetic, and India is like also that. Okay, so I'm just saying a lot of diabetic people, might need to use it. Okay, hearing loss, like our Hawkeye here, who can't, often hear, but he's visually very good. He would have to rely on captions, right? YouTube captions were invented so that people with these assistive technologies could engage, right? A dark mode was created so that people, with like low vision or like, with who needed a little more contrast could engage. We ended up using all those things. So these people use switches, these people use voice-over technology, and then, they definitely rely on captions. And our own Greg Abbott, so people with motor skills, like our Professor Hot Wheels here, can, they rely on switches too, they have low physical movement. They can't definitely go to everywhere, they often rely on other people. So these people also rely on the assistive technologies that I just said. Maybe your hand is working, maybe it's not, maybe you got injured a little bit. In those cases, we might be like them, we might need to be using this technology. So, speech, this is definitely a hard one. People who can't speak, in spoken language, oftentimes we might need to do this, right? Say I go to Spain, right? Say I go to Mexico or like, Germany, right? I can't engage in those languages. So for me to make it easier for me to make, for them to make it easier for me to come there, they have transcripts in English, right? They have captions in English. It's the same thing. If the people who can't speak can't engage with you, right? It's a very hard challenge, and this is definitely one of the most often, overlooked challenge. As well as our next one, which is cognitive learning, just like our Percy Jackson, who's also very smart, right? No doubt about it. But people with some sort of like cognitive learning, this can be ADHD, dyslexia, this could be, memory challenges. As we get older, we do tend to get these as well. So the best thing that you could do for them is make it simple, okay? Don't put a bunch of buttons, don't put a bunch of confusing UI, because if you end up like, confusing them, they're not gonna use it. And if you build for them, you're making it simpler for all of us to use. So, some basics. W3C is the official government sort of like body which enforces it. WCAG is the guidelines that they set up. We are in 2.2 right now, and there's also 2.1 which went over. POUR is the principles that they go by. Perceivable, everything should be perceived, everything should be understood. Operatable, everyone should be able to operate and work with it. Understandable, they should be able to understand, right, after this. Just because these two work and they're not able to understand, they can't do anything. And robust enough for them to understand that this is not something new that they have to learn. ARIA is the internet-rich accessibility tags. Like, this is how they get to, like, any voice reader or anything knows how to like navigate in a complex UI. And semantic HTML, if you don't learn anything from this, just know that you need to definitely learn and use semantic HTML, not just for accessibility, but for like a bunch of other reasons. This is like, how you divide a page in HTML in like UL tags, LI tags, headings, and all that. Keyboard navigation is how we use keyboard. This again was built for people with disabilities, and now I use it, right? Now I use most of my Windows at least using keyboard navigation. Focus state is when you go from one element to other element. Alt text is basically the text that is on top of an image. This is what a screen reader reads. It could be for a video as well. A color contrast is the minimum ratio that nothing too complex. Okay, so what am I promising you, right? So I'm telling you that if you are a developer and you learn about accessibility, you will be a better engineer, right? You will be someone who would be sought after, because think about it, all this other skills that you could be building, learning cloud, learning AI, learning all these other things, these are not mandated, okay? knowing accessibility will definitely get you more interview chances. That's how I got a chance to, right? And I'm gonna talk a little bit about how to approach it in production. So yeah. So I made some case studies. I will go through them case by case. But I want you guys to raise your hands and ask your questions if you have any along the way. I'll focus on the components, which are basically the elements that we all need to work on. This is the lowest level stuff that we all need to definitely focus on. So primary users, who is it for? Is it for people with speech disabilities? Is it for people with like blindness? The constraints that I faced or you might be facing, and the problem statement, the impact for the user and for the business maybe, and the remediation that I've applied, and some demo code. Cool. So the first case is the focus and navigation for the auto rotation. FYI, carousels are not the most accessible components. I know Amazon has it in like their homepage, but it has a bunch of not the most easily accessible features on it, which I'll talk about. But if you think about it, carousels are the face of a bunch of like websites out there, and they're important. There's definitely an important side to it. So how can we make them accessible, right? So a hero carousel is, as soon as the user comes onto the page, the first component that they engage with. And I had a case that I worked on. So this case that I'm talking about is mainly for keyboard users and screen readers. And there are different things that you might need to consider. I'm just mentioning 3 cases here, just to keep it simple. But theming, right? Amazon might have primed it. It's in blue color, right? Your focus indication is in blue color right now. So how are they going to be able to see it, right? Like what is the mobile experience as opposed to desktop experience? A lot of people use mobiles, like even people with disabilities, right? You have to make sure it's accessible for them anywhere they are too, just like us, right? And full breed images are images that stretch end to end, just like a edge case. Anyway, so one of the challenges that I faced very early, right, was I was working on implementing a custom focus indicator. Basically, what ended up happening was we have a shared library, and the push-in update, our team merged it, and then we realized the padding was too much. Okay, this took out the focus indication that comes to them. So now we still need to use their styles, but we need to create our own custom focus indication because we have to still make it accessible and keep it accessible during that time, right? And that's just like the Amazon carousel I'm talking about. So as a result, the focusing disappeared and people using keyboard navigation. So what is the challenge here if you can't see a focus, right, on the on the element? You don't know where you are. You don't know where you need to click. You don't know where you need to go. So that makes it challenging for them. People who are already doubting if they're doing the right thing. So yeah. Let me come here. I made a bunch of cases. These are not really that dense, but I tried my best. Okay, I used a bunch of ChatGPT. So yes. Oh no. Might have to put my mic. Yes. Testing. Yeah. Good. You guys get to me, right? Good. LS. Okay, it came out too much. Okay, I need to go back to okay. Oh, so one of the challenges that I faced, right, when I was working, okay, I don't know. Let's just go back to the folder. Okay, so one of the challenges that I faced, right, you guys saw my previous experiences. At Amazon, they use their own internal framework, which means okay, it is there. It just would not go. It's still there. I don't know why it did not go. Yeah, it is there. Okay, cool. Case 1, and yeah. So the thing I was trying to say earlier is basically, so I I worked with React, right? I worked
Would you
with
mind-
Angular.
Would you mind zooming in? Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Control plus.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a little slow. I'm realizing my laptop kind of like sucks, but I don't use it for it. Yeah. And we have done there. Okay, so the point that I was trying to drive was basically the same principles you can apply across frameworks. Okay, I worked in React, I worked in Angular, and Amazon has its own internal framework, which is completely different. So these principles you should be able to apply across like a bunch of like other places. So yeah. Anyway, so the first one is the focus indication. Like I just told you, visual navigation. So right now I'll tab through it. Tabbing is how I'm confident that most of you guys know already. You get it on. So right now you can see the default focus navigation. If you use a semantic tag, you should already get this, okay? But what happened, our internal dependency or a shared component library took this out. So we need to disable this. How would we do it? So you could go here. Our focus indication should be applied on the element itself. You can take outline as the element which actually applies the selector, which applies the focus indication. Okay, if you turn outline to none, and if you, I'm going to make it important because I don't trust it. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Cool. So that focus indication went, and my so the custom focus indication is coming from a box shadow. Okay. If you don't know, you can implement a focus indicator using a box shadow as an alternative approach. It works as well, but right now it's yelling at me for some reason. Invalid property.
Typo on the name, sprinkle and E.
Oh, okay, yeah. Good. Right now, if I go, the user would not know. Imagine like this like an ad for like watching, I don't know, like a very famous movie on the homepage, right? Now the user does not know that they need to like, you know, click on it to be able to access it. They can't go to Amazon, right? They can't go to any other. This problem can happen to anyone, right? So yeah, and like they would not know anywhere on the character. So it is very important, right? For like a bunch of reasons. Product would not like it, design would not like it, you know. So I'll turn back the box shadow. So basically all we did was we just implemented a very basic box shadow. If you come here and click on focus and focus result, and let me go back and turn off the box shadow now. Yeah. Okay, outline is cool, but yeah, box shadow. So no. Okay, cool. Let me yeah. Okay, so the reason I'm trying to show you the box shadow is because like, I just want to show you how you can implement it. So if you click here and if you click on the focus visible property, which is not applied here, right here. Yeah, so you can see the focus ring that we applied. It's just like a focus ring, right? So imagine, right, now the user can actually see a focus ring, and I know why the default one is coming. It's okay. So, so there are different cases for this as well. Like I mentioned, you need to consider what if it's a dark thing, right? What if the user needs to be able to see if it's in a dark mode? Like you should be able to show them like the focus indication. Right now there's a double border. So even if there is like a blue color, there is a white, so the user can still see. And what if it's a high contrast? Just like a HTML, it's all white, okay? And like the same focus indication would need it to be applied on mobile as well, right? So same thing, right? You know, so I can disable the same box shadow and you will see the same focus indicator. So yeah, so let's go back to the slide. So yeah. So before I go into this, so I just want. Oh, do you have a question?
I heard you say something, like my apologies, like I don't write a lot of front end code, so.
Yeah.
But I was finding this part really intimidating. You said, I think something around the lines of, if you use semantic HTML, you already have this.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So, so semantic HTML. Do you know what semantic?
I know what semantic
semantic
Yeah, yeah,
HTML
so-
is about, what's the, I guess my question is, so I
If
write
you
some
have a
front-end
link, right?
code.
If you have a list, if you have a link or a list and you're using the UL side, you're using the LI side, you're not using a div tag instead of like I have like a second example which specifically goes into this too. It should automatically have focus.
Okay.
It should have that coming in, right? And these are things that were already implemented. What happens? Say you're in a project and you're using Bootstrap, right? They override those styles and they implement their own focus indicator. So if you knock out that focus indicator, now you don't have any focus indicator, and the default one is not also.
So use
going to-
semantic HTML, but when I can't,
Yeah.
I'm forced to use like a div or something like
Don't
that.
use a div. Yeah, don't use a div. Use the UL element. Use the semantic HTML as much as you can. So all these like focus indication and others can. Like,
So if the semantic HTML solves the issue, why do I need to do anything?
Well, it doesn't really, it gives guidance to the voice readers. If you use like article and a section and a side and like the main elements, they help give the screen readers directions of where to go and what you're in. But then you have to apply even more focus or more directions to screen readers as you adapt stuff.
Got it.
So having semantic HTML is good for
Oh, I
SEO
don't have
and
it,
good
right.
for screen readers out of the box.
Like when you're using iPhone reader,
Right, you can look at tablet. Is there I can look at screen reader tool,
Like a colorblind version or something like that?
You can kind of get, well, if you're trying to do colorblind testing, you can go into Lighthouse, but you can also go into Firefox or even Chrome, and you can go into like different settings to see how does it look with low visibility, blurred visibility, even red-green ones.
Okay, yeah, and I want to touch on that too, right? First of all, great question, thanks for asking. So, say you have a brand, right? You don't want a random focus indicator there. You definitely want to keep your brand's identity. If you go to Netflix, right, just for fun, you will see they have their own focus indication that they will apply, right? And it's different from the one that Amazon would want to use. And you have a design team and they will definitely see it's orange right now. So they definitely want to make sure, like, if you're working for like a little company which has big scale, right? They definitely care about like all these minor things. So it definitely comes into it. This is the focus indicator I was talking about earlier. Okay. Right now it has a double border, so it's the same example that I just showed you. Like a different scale, but yeah. So yeah. Anyway, moving on. So now that we have the focus indicator, did anyone have a question? I saw someone else. Cool. Yeah. So the reason, right, that we should not use carousel is, I mean, you can use carousel, just make sure it's accessible. The second reason is this, okay? A lot of carousel right now, the campaign is not running for it. But if you know, I've used Amazon, I'm sure a bunch of you guys did, it has a similar carousel to this one. What ends up happening is it auto rotates, okay? It moves from one image to the next image in a particular, like, 4 seconds, right? So there is a WCAG rule, right? If an image or if there is a moving, element and it does not provide controls to go back and forth or pause it at under 5 seconds, guess what? You're gonna get slapped with a fine again. So you need to make sure that any animation or any moving element that you have put in your website has some sort of control for everyone. So that pause, I might use it, someone else might use it, and they don't really need to be an accessible user.
You said under 5 seconds, so
Yeah.
just delay it?
You could. So great question, right? So this is what we thought. So you could just get over the rule and then delay it. But you know what that would do? It would end up pissing like the rest of 90% of people out there who don't want that experience, right? And you don't. So what ended up happening was we had to put a reset button or a stop button. So we strike the balance where like we did not cross the rule. Right now the carousel goes just at 5 seconds. And if it goes over, then we would have had to put a pause, like a stop button. So we just put a pause and a reset, okay? So that, like there's like a bunch of tools that go on top, like how animation should work. So yeah, this is like a discussion that like, product team, design teams are really interested in. And they definitely want to come, like, have a lot of control over all these micro applications as well. Yeah. Anyway, you should, like, the basic principle here is that you should give the user the ability to manually move through slides or keyboards or everything. Everything that a normal person, like normal in the sense like, someone who does not have disabilities can do. You want the people who have accessibility challenges as well to be able to do. I don't have an example for this, but yeah. So I'm going to touch a little bit about how this can be something that, so my experience in accessibility has been very different. I say this because I've worked across like different frameworks that I told you. So it also changes with the scale that you're working at. Say you're working at a big tech company, they would definitely want you to run an experiment, even if it's a small focus indicator. So you have to think about that. How do you validate the focus indication or like the change or style that you applied? You have to think about that. How do you prove that this experiment is a success? You have to maybe think about that. You have to collaborate like with the product and design team that I just told you. And yeah, you have like so what ended up happening was the template that I was using in TypeScript was being consumed by a bunch of other components. Why would it not be right? It's a small component, so it would be used across, right? So I had to change a bunch of code elsewhere as well, just to make this one small focus indicator change, right? So I had to change like 12 files just for this one thing. So that's the thing. So if you work in accessibility, you get to work in like a much deeper context, and you have to really think about all these like other cases, and it ends up making you like a better developer who can understand the end-to-end process as well. So yeah, second one is lazy loading. I'm pretty sure most of you guys know what lazy loading is, but I just say lazy loading is when we want to save a bunch of resources, save calls to APIs, right? And you only want to render or fetch the resources that we want to do. So progressively on any page, even Netflix, right, will want to do the same thing. So they will not render all these other cards, right? Once you click on something, that's when they want to use that, extra resources. The same thing that Amazon does, right? And trust me, like Amazon has infinite carousels, okay? Which means they just keep going on, okay? So you need to make sure that like the resources that you're using and the list elements that you're using are accessible for user. What do I mean by that? So you and I know where exactly you are on that page. Again, the user will not know where exactly they are on that page. If it's a list of 20 items and they don't know which item they're on, they will not be able to understand it, go back to it, click on it, or a bunch of other things. So yeah, you should definitely think about the network calls that you're making and think about how, say you have a model and it works dynamically, right? Say you have an alert system that works dynamically, right? How do you make it such that it's not making the experience of the assistant user confusing, right? If it just pops up and the screen reader does not pick it, they don't know where they are at, and now they have to go back and start from test. So yeah. So like I said, you should never use this as the element itself. If you're using a p tag and it's a link, definitely use a link. Don't use a p tag. These are just like basic things that nobody will notice. But let's jump into the example for this one as well. I have like a very simple example. Just do. Yes. If you guys have any questions, I can answer right now. Yeah, I mean each of these things. I'm not even using it, but yeah, pretty sure that will work. So for this one, it might get a little annoying, but trust me, you will learn something for sure. So I'm going to use a screen reader right now, okay? Just to exemplify how that could be. And I'm going to turn the voice on. It is a little annoying for me too.
Commands for controlling NVDA require you to hold down the NVDA. Welcome to Case 1 ALB plus React.
Okay, so
Chrome Legacy local.
Okay, let me quit it.
Exit N.
Chrome for some reason does not work the best with accessible elements, so I figured out I should just use Mozilla Firefox. So anyway, let me go back to the screen reader. Way better for at least welcome to NVDA plus React Mozilla Firefox. Demo modes grouping. Case 1. Broken. Non-semantic divs. No announcements. Radio button checked 1 of 3. EOS 24H moisture body lotion. Vanilla cashmere. Item 1. Crocs classic clog. Black. Item 2. Bounty quick size paper towels. 8-pack. Item 3. So what's the problem here? Does anyone know what's the problem here? It's a div tag, okay? I'm still using a div. It might look completely fine, but what is the problem?
You don't know when it ends, right?
Yeah, you don't know where you're at, you don't know which item you're in, and it's just reading the tag, that's it. It's not telling the user, like, that there is an image too. The tag, the semantic text, or sorry, the IR label that it's reading right now is of the div, it's not reading the images itself, it's not describing the image. Right now I have it described as the image, that's why you're able to see it, but
S.
yeah.
Developer tools frame. Developer tools style equals min width. 1 ADP case 1 style A11 case 1 broken non-semantic style K B plus React document bounty quick size paper towels case ML modes grouping case B plus A forward B plus React busy dem case ML modes grouping case 2 semantic list no additional support radio button not checked 2 of 3 checked.
Change the experience a little bit. You could definitely cater this experience. This is what I'll talk later. But
M8V plus React Crocs Classic Clog black item 2 graphic Crocs Classic Clog black item 2.
So it read the graphic as well right now. Okay, so right now, previously when we jumped from only having 3 elements to having more elements, the user did not know that there were more elements that were loaded. So he did not even know that they have to like navigate. So they would not even know that they would have to go further. Okay, so
Bounty quick size paper towels 8 pack item 3 graphic bounty quick size paper towels 8 pack item 3.
Okay, good. Yeah.
In cases like this where the item and the text are the same, is there a way for you to not say like the redundant?
You can, but generally they're not. Generally they do tend to be different. Generally, like, it's just like a very basic example that I came with. And I did not even have enough time to change it. But generally they're not. If I go
Fire beat open nav AMA collapse W pick up where you look. Search Amazon edit expanded go button click expand
Okay, I'm just gonna run.
list with today's fashion look neat Nilite LED pods 2 PCS 18 W1260 LM spot off-road light super bright driving fog boat lamp work light see all deals graphic link
Now it's reading a little bit. Okay, so
blank
yeah. So
V plus React document graphic bounty quick size paper towels 8 pack item 3.
It's not. Okay. And right now, I don't know if you guys have observed, it did not tell you that it loaded up few more elements, even when using the semantic text. So that is what I'm trying to say. Even when you're following the best practice of just using a semantic text, the user does not know that the lazy load has loaded a bunch of new
V plus React
let's go through
document.
this. And now we've changed the experience a little bit again.
Demo clickable lazy loaded items list with 3 items EOS 24H moisture body lotion vanilla cashmere item 1
And it's talks
Crocs classic clog black item 2
Yeah. And
loaded 3 more
And
items
now it told the user that
total
there are 3
6
more items.
bounty quick size paper towels 8 pack EOS 24H moisture body lotion Crocs classic clog loaded 3 more EOS 24H moisture body lotion Crocs loaded 1 more items took EOS 24H moisture body lotion vanilla cashmere item 10.
Okay, so you see that even using the best practices, it does not like it told the user there are 3 more items that are loaded, and it should also announce that all items have been loaded. I don't know what happened, but it's not showing right now. But it should tell the user basically, okay, you're at the end, and now you're gonna go on, right? Yeah. So any questions before I go on? But this is what I'm trying to nail down, right? If you are someone, like, think about it, you're someone who's can't see, right, and who's just using this, and they don't know where they're at any particular point. They are not going to engage with your website for too long. They're just going to go to something that they know is going to work, right? So yeah.
V.
Good. Let's go back. Yeah. So yes.
So you had mentioned about the fines that companies face.
Yeah.
Now some companies like to do accessibility correctly, it's work. But some companies go the other way to make accessibility even worse. For instance, some websites won't let you paste passwords, right? Some websites won't let you use password managers. And technically, it's a accessibility problem. So the question is, how can I get those companies fined?
Oh, so you can definitely go to your, I think like local body and then find like suit that hey, there's this service. Say right, you are using Amazon, right, in USA. In India, there's like a couple of them, like e-commerce, like stores out there. But in US, if you're here, you are dependent on one service. Right now, what's gonna end up happening is you can just say, hey, there's this one service which I really need. I can't even get out of house, and this person is not even making it accessible to me. And there's billions of people who use it. So, so the way the fine works is how many people are using it, and how how many people are you disenfranchising by not making sure that it's not accessible. And you can file I don't know completely how you can go and file a lawsuit, but I know that you can definitely go in and file a lawsuit for sure. That's how all these complaints arises, and that's how now it's a regulation that you have to do. Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so infinite scrolls, the customer experience would be a lot worse. But we just went through horizontal scrolls, and so I just mentioned one of the network ones. I just mentioned one experience of lazy loading. Like I said, there's models, there's alerts. You have to think about how to assign roles to these. How do I make it easier for the user to access them and navigate through them? How do I don't disrupt their experience as well? So yeah, covered the syntax, semantic part. If you see the status of role is status, it will announce this is the status right now. And showing X to Y elements, you can write custom functions for it. You can definitely use what's already there. I definitely wrote my own custom logic. And you can set up methods that you can keep accessing over and over. And right now you don't need any image stability because Amazon would be tight about their code. But there's a lot of experiences out there which show you distorted images. And what ends up happening is the user loses focus because the image size is different, and each screen reader also works differently. Okay, and the focus works differently. So you really need to try to stick to the best practice ones. So yeah, that's it. So I'm gonna go to the third case, which is a window display layout. Basically, window display meaning anything in a window, and there's some content that is displayed. So the real example is here. So this is a window display for us at least. So if you see, right, I can't show you right now, but if you see, this is also being lazy loaded, and this experience would be accessed by people using different devices. Okay, if you have a Echo Show at home, you might be using an Echo Show. Echo Show is like an Amazon, Google Home, right? Google Nest. You might be using that device to access Amazon, right? You might be using a tablet, right? And people who rely on, who have disabilities generally do tend to use different screen sizes as well. So this again, I want to emphasize my point that if you're working in accessibility, you're not just working on making screen readers work or making sure that focus indication work. You have to really think about the whole experience and really everyone, right? If I'm not making it accessible for people who are using different kinds of displays, even that is not the best case, especially when you're operating at this scale, So yeah, so I'm gonna go through a CSS focused case, and I'll talk about how you can make data accessible a little bit. Yeah, so the constraints here, so the users here are people using limited display area and different kinds of displays to access content. And the constraints that they might be facing is limited, screen size. And we do have restrictions. We can't all have a big tablet everywhere, right? And so you have to maintain focus, clear navigation. They need to know where they're at, and you need to make sure that it's a smooth experience. Definitely not something that takes the focus out and makes it confusing. So here, if you see, right, in my example, right now the images are scaled not the best. If you see the dogs, right, they're very small and it's very kind of hard to see. And this is because right now we are at 1716, okay, a large UL. And there's also you can even be penalized for this as well. There are, so the WCAJ 1.4, like that rule, basically if you resize and the text does not align or if it's not accessible, even then you can be charged. Too much white space or overflow can also be charged. And harder navigation, so some users definitely rely on magnifiers. People who have low vision or people who have can't really see that well, so they might be relying on magnifiers, and Windows just gives you a magnifier very limited. So think about it. If you are using a magnifier experience and you want to see this thing, right, it might just be confusing for you, and I don't know how to get out of it. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah. So like I said, it definitely matters. Some people can't see, they use special kinds of devices like this device right here. So where if they need to engage with the web, they really need to be able to zoom in very well. And this can lead to a lot of broken layouts. And there are definitely different devices that we are still building. If you have a Samsung Galaxy Fold phone, right? You might be using Amazon in a very different experience rather than someone who has supported experience. Because right now your view width would be much different. You have to take care of that as well. So yeah. Anyway, let me go into the example. Yes, I know I can use the tab, but my brain mental model only goes. Skip it. I know. Okay, did you anything? No, you just start. Good. So, let's go into this example. Good. Yeah, so as you can see, it's not scaling, right? It's definitely broken. And I'm going to inspect. And if you go to the responsive view, I should be able to scale it. And you can see, right? It's not good at all. I'm sure I made this purposefully this way, but there are definitely experiences out there which operate you don't know where you are at, and even if you're only seeing one car, you don't know what's next to it, what's in front of it or all that, right? So let's go to the fix, and I'll talk about this fix. It's a little interesting one for sure. So right now, if you see, it definitely scaled a little differently. So yeah. So I just implemented simple media queries, and I will show you the logic for it. Okay. Let me go to it. CSS. I don't know if I put in yeah. So if you see here, right, all I did was for a different bunch of screens, I made sure that it divides by a particular size, right? And you can get this number from your designer. You can experiment, a bunch of times and figure out what works best for you. And it is definitely that way, because your cards, your components, your UI might be sized differently for different reasons, right? And you're going to be building on top of that. So it's never going to be this one value, this one size that is going to be applied to all. So yeah. Anyway, so basically all we did is we just made sure it's in landscape mode, and then we made sure if it has a size of this one, which is 961. So I will just scale, right? So as you scale, it definitely scales, and even right now there's a little white space, but yeah, no user will just use this. But if you end up with a similar screen size, you should be able to navigate. Anyway, so I discovered I went with I had to deal with a very interesting case. So I was not able to generate it with code, but I'm just gonna explain to it. So if you see here, say your lazy loading only loads the first two components, first two cards. But this card will have a skeleton, okay, and it will not be rendering. And it's still a skeleton, it's just loading. It's just like a blank. So how do you make it load when the view width changes? Okay, and it needs to be scalable to different kinds of devices as well, different kinds of screen sizes. Does anyone know? No? There's a thing called intersection observer. So when you work in accessibility, you will know that it's a big space, but you might definitely run into a lot of small cases. But this is the resource for you to definitely use. I'm sure this is the same case for anyone. But all intersection observer will do is, it will see if this card is rendered more than 5% or 10%. And I do have the logic for that. Right now I just don't have the skeleton. And it will, all it will do is, if it's visible and if it's intersecting, which means it's touching, right? It's touching the fluid. And if you can see more than 10% of it, just make sure you can see it and don't apply the skeleton. Okay? So this is not, I'm not working in accessibility, I'm not, working for a screen reader. But this is still the case that, like if you're working as a developer, not in accessibility still has to deal with, So, yeah, any questions on this for everyone? Cool. Yeah, so that was like my last example, and yeah, this is the logic that I just showed you. Okay, cool. So how I tackle accessibility at scale and how I work through all these problems. After working through a bunch of these problems, like those 25 tickets or like the tickets that I'm working on right now, I definitely understood that there's like a bunch of things that you always need to make sure that you're considering, which I'll talk about. You have to definitely manually test. You can't just like rely on like automation testing. Oh, so if you are wondering how do I test something, or if I like how do I actually evaluate something, right? Let me not do it on here because I'll be embarrassed. But you can definitely do it here. So this is a tool called Wave, okay, and it's WCAG's W3C's official tool for evaluating accessibility. Okay, but anyway, you can just go on any page and it will show you, and it will tell you exactly what the error is. And right now, this element is missing a label, and there is no contrast here. You might not need to consider all of these. You can go case by case basis, but this will definitely help you evaluate where your application is at like a much faster rate. So definitely check it out. This can be a good action item for sure. And the other one that I wanted to talk about was Lighthouse. I don't use it that much, but I did hear like a bunch of good things about it. So a bunch of times, this is a random case, not necessarily for here. What happens is, if there is alt text, your marketing team might tell you, hey, instead of us putting an alt text, let's just use an SEO keyword so we can optimize our search engine and we can end up in like a better spot in Google. Google updated their their parameters for it, and you might actually be ranked lower. Secondly, if you're not making it accessible for people, and if you're actually not generating proper captions, it's not like the best experience. So yeah, right now Netflix got a very good score, which is 90%, and all I had to do was go to Lighthouse and see, and it will also tell you what is wrong here. It's telling you that it's not using the best element, and ARIA2 is hidden, but element contains focusable descendants. So you can play around with these tools, and if you have like an app that you're working on or at your work, you can definitely check it out. Just prototype quickly. And other thing is that you have to kind of champion accessibility. If the design is not doing it, you might have to do it. And you have to communicate to other people to how to test these experiences as well, because it's definitely not a thing that most people come in having experience in. So you might have to teach your QA team how to use a screen reader. You might have to show them how to automatically test using the Wave tool. You might have to set up pipelines which automatically run tests, checking for ARIA labels, checking for tags. You might have to collaborate with design, explain them the problem, or design might come to you. And you have to definitely communicate these problems to product, because you might need to change the layout in a certain way, and you definitely need product approval. So you definitely sit at the intersection of all of these. So the checklist that I was talking about is, one, if I get accessibility ticket and say the focus indicator or like lazy loading, right? I will definitely try to understand the problem first. You can use GPT, you can use whatever, but definitely try to be in the user's shoes. Definitely try to understand where the problem is. Why is this important? It's not only is it putting you in their shoes, but it will also help you understand how this change might impact for other users as well. So that's one thing. You can W3C AG, they have a bunch of they have great documentation. Okay, I'm not even kidding. Should definitely check this out. This is what I use a lot of the times. Yeah. So yeah, right now we're at the 2.2 standard, but you can just go through this documentation and hey, they're also introducing user names, okay? And so this is a random topic, okay? But I do want to touch on this. Say in future we end up building like voice interfaces, right? We end up building like a bunch of like different experiences. Say you want to just talk to a web page and it should automatically fetch. If you're working in accessibility, then you are at the forefront of it. You might be able to build agents that might be able to fetch that information for you, make it easier for you. So yeah, this is definitely a space that will keep growing and scaling. Yeah, so like I mentioned, understand the problem, research and align. Align definitely with the team, because like you might be able to like be like, hey, this is the ideal solution, this is what I need to implement, but someone might be pushing back because they don't want that change to apply. So definitely look at the standard and align with teams. Understand the impact that it is causing right now. If it's a very important component and something that brings you a lot of money in and people can't use it, then it definitely you're going to lose business. Just for example, like say Amazon has 1 billion users, and if like 0.1 of them, like 10 million users, I know for sure use landscape mode, okay, in Amazon. That's just like, imagine you getting 10 million users for using your product and you not being able to service them, right? At scale, this is very huge, the impact. That is why a lot of big teams need to do it and take this very seriously. Obviously at smaller scale, you can definitely apply practices to make it easy. You have to definitely consider if you need to run an experiment with it. All the fixes that I did definitely had an experiment with WebLab, which definitely ends up complicating things, but it's also helpful. In WorkUA, implement and test. You might need to implement end-to-end testing. You might need to implement snapshot testing. How do you test adding a tag on a screen reader? How do you write a scenario for it, right? It's an interesting thing. How do you check for that tag? How do you write the assertion that makes sure that it is properly applied, right? How do you make sure it's applied at the right time as well? How do you like for the lazy loading examples, how do you write a unit test for that? Right? These are all like different hypercontext-like cases, but definitely helps you learn. And once you launch your monitor, make sure your experiment is good, people are using it, experiences, it's working, and you definitely want to build a culture of like documenting and maintaining these standards. So yeah, accessibility makes you understand the norm at a much better rate and much deeply, rather than just not understanding good. You would understand interaction models like the screen readers, all these other cases as well, understand semantics. Like I said, area growth, and you can be working in any country, right? This is just the beginning, right? All countries will need this code. There might be different global standards that might come in future, and you might need to build for that. And if you make something complex simple, right? Like Einstein said, you can explain a 4-year-old like a very hard problem. Only then you understand. Only then, if you make it accessible for these people, you will end up making it easier for the rest. So yeah, if you make a complex experience easy for these people, you will end up making it better for everyone. And it's not extra work if you think about it. Like I said, you can definitely have like a bunch of edge cases, but if you're catering and you're making sure that you have your semantics right, you're at least like making sure your website has or your app has like most of the experience there. You're still working on it. Okay, you can, but you need to really work at the component level and set the standards very early. Once you have built out a component, and then if you want to go and implement that change, it becomes much more complex to do so for like a bunch of other reasons. So yeah, definitely try to start early, and yeah, good accessibility skills. If I write a small component that is going to be used by a bunch of other teams, right? Now that I made this component accessible, their team, will have accessible component as well. So definitely think about that. I showed you Wave, Lighthouse. NVDA is the voiceover that I've used, but Mac has its own voiceover. I hate the Windows voiceover, but you can definitely use it. And Frontend Masters has a course on it. I've not done it. I've done case by case basis, and it definitely did work out for me. If you want, you can definitely do a certification. I think there's a very standardized certification called I'm blanking on the name, but like if you do that, then you will be already in like the 1% of people who have that certification. So yeah, you can definitely look at your alt tags. If you're building an app, you can test it with the screen reader that you just tested it with right now, just to see how the experience is like. And you can add accessibility to your code review pipeline as well, and make sure it's being enforced. So yeah. So yeah, that's me. Yeah, my name is Kushal. And yeah, shameless plug. I'm definitely looking for more opportunities. So if you have your team is looking for someone who needs to implement accessibility or just anything else. Yeah, I am definitely interested. Yeah, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I can answer questions if you guys have any. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Early in going over like more brain things, is backend accessibility a thing, or is that just kind of like you guys?
Generally, it's the front-end engineer who needs to, be the driver for this. So you can definitely collaborate with backend, right? You don't want to take any tags from backend, but there are some backends right now, say a vector database, right? And it has a bunch of images. Say your backend team can write a logic to automatically generate alt tags for it, and you incorporate it as a front-end developer. That's all three layers working in together. So you can definitely have all these performance is definitely a thing which you would want to prioritize as like a backend engineer, right? And you definitely want to have lazy loading or all these things, right? You have to think about how it affects accessibility as well. Not just all the metrics, what's the load time, how fast is it, all of that. So yeah, it's definitely case by case. They don't definitely focus on it, but if you're a front-end developer, you have to be like the back end, right? Yeah.
It was about 20 years ago now, I think, that advocacy group for the visual impaired brought a lawsuit against Target for not having the alt text, and I believe a part of their defensibility at the time was there's so many browsers. I mean, people were still running Netscape and all kinds of shit. Nowadays, everything's V8, but my question goes to, at what point do you test another browser that's non-standard and meet the smaller portion of the population that at scale is still big number?
Yeah, great question. So, there's a website, right? Is it usable? I don't know if you guys remember the name. Does anyone know the name? But basically, there's a website out there. So what it does is, it basically evaluates, say you have like a semantic HTML, right? And the UL tags might be working in some places. It might not be working in like a bunch of other places, okay? So it will go by browser and tell you if you use this, is it going to work in Firefox? Is it going to work in Internet Explorer?
Oh, can I use this?
How can I use this? Yes. Okay. Can I use this? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Can I use this? See. So yeah. So you can definitely add your content here, and you can definitely see if it's going to work in a bunch of browsers as well. Yeah. And you definitely, this is a very big thing because a part of the world definitely does not use Chrome. A part of the world definitely relies on Chrome, and you want to definitely make sure you build experiences for them. And lastly, screen readers do work differently, okay? So one screen reader might read a semantic tag differently than the other one, and these roles, you can make some text assertive, you can make some text polite, and sometimes it will yell at you. Okay, so you want to make sure that your testing is a couple of dimensions. Yes?
Yeah, how do you put accessibility into your Jira tickets or into your tickets so that developers know what needs to be accessible and what's not needed to be accessible?
So we have a team for evaluating where we are at Amazon. They are the accessibility bar raisers. They will go through everything and they will evaluate your whole website and they will raise a bunch of tickets. But you can, like I said, you can, every time you make a code change, right, you can definitely configure your pipelines to check if there are ARIA labels or not for every new component that you're writing, for every new image tag that you're adding there. You have to have your own mechanism. You don't need to rely on someone else, right? You can build those systems in a bunch of ways. You can add end-to-end tests, you can add unit tests, you can add all these checks. You can go with the automated testing flow that
I think what I was referring to is even before that, how do you know what should be accessible? I am creating a card. What accessibility should this card have? What do you all do for that? Like, because I can write semantic, I can put my own area roles in, I can make sure it has an alt tag. Besides that, what do you all do to tell your developers what to do?
So does the card have like a link on it? Do you have like a see more button which you want to show the user to get them to like a different flow, and like if they like say say here, there are a bunch of cards here. Each card has a different function, right? If you think about it, they're all cards, right? Here there's a see all deals, right? So right now you're trying to show them a bunch of deals that you want them to look at, right? Here there's a card, but there is a call to action here where you want them to see a bunch of buy again. So here you are giving the user the option for them to be interested in this element, this, everything, and you want them to be able to click this as well. So at like the same thing that you want anyone else to be doing, you should make sure that the people who have disabilities should also be able to do. That is at the core of it. Anything that anyone else can do, you want people with disabilities to be able to do as well.
Have you seen the LLMs? Are they good at writing accessible features? Or are they not really?
I definitely use LLMs like a lot in my flow. I use them to so they're good at like telling you what's the function of ARIA role, like a tag and so on and so forth. But they don't help you in all these like sub cases, like intersection observer and implemented, right? There's no way the LLM can tell me. It's a complex problem, just like any complex problem. I found my experience to be, even if I tell it, even if I prompt it, it will not give me what it needs to write. So I need to really drill it down and make sure I'm going iterating through it. You should definitely use it. I build my own GPTs. I feed it the documentation, and I tell it this is ARIA 2.2 is the standard that we use. This is the component, this is the template, like say you want to write a unit test. LLMs are great at helping you figure out how to write a unit test. So you should definitely use it at every step. But my experience has been the more complex it gets, the more you can't rely on it. It definitely hallucinates after a while. Yes?
Can I answer his question?
Yeah.
Ask someone with a disability. Like, that's literally where we should be going to ask for these things. And I recommend the book called Against Techno-Ableism by Ashley Scoop. And she is a disabled person who talks about how, as developers, where we should start.
Thank you. Yeah. I was wondering why is there no one here, who relies on this. So, any other questions?
Are any of the big frameworks good at this, just out of the box, like chat? Like chat,
To be honest, I've not used a bunch of these outside because I don't get to. I work with it. Yeah. And they have some documentation specific for it as well. Yeah. Yeah. They'll have a tab somewhere where they'll just talk about accessibility, right? So they'll have like this. What is that, chat? Chat. See, I don't even know. Yeah.
It's a generator.
Okay. Nice.
But also, I was going to say too, at Alpha we use a lot of React stuff.
Yeah.
And they expect into that as well.
Yeah.
So it's you're definitely better off it's if you need a menu, a drop-down menu type thing, you're way better off not building it yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And there are definitely ones that are better, obviously, than other ones. So this is a shortcut for you. You can just stick to the ones that work and build it, with them, and you can obviously go in there and change whenever you want to. Thank you.